Wake up, blue-haired princess. The game's not over yet. The voice cut through the thick blanket of snow with chilling precision. But when Raven Sterling opened her eyes, there was only the howling wind and the heavy breathing of a massive dog beside her. She lay on the frozen ground, her body numb with cold, her mind an empty void, as if someone had erased every memory with surgical precision. The name tag on the dog's collar read, Atlas, Canine Unit, Master, Seal Garrett Blackstone. But that was impossible. Garrett Blackstone had been dead for a year. The German shepherd lifted his head, golden eyes staring directly into hers with an intelligence that seemed almost human. Around Atlas's neck, a small metal box was secured tightly, definitely not standard military equipment. As she reached toward it, the sound of helicopter rotors echoed through the snow-covered forest. "Found traces!" a voice shouted through the trees. "She's here! Alpha Team moves in!" Atlas suddenly stood rigid, the fur along his spine rising. A low growl emanated from deep in his throat, not a warning for ordinary enemies, but a response to mortal danger. The dog turned to look at Raven, and in that moment, she saw something that made her heart stop beating. Atlas wasn't just protecting her, he was terrified. The massive dog bolted toward the tree line, and without understanding why, Raven followed. Her legs moved with fluid precision through the deep snow, muscle memory guiding her in ways her conscious mind couldn't explain. Behind them, the helicopter grew louder, searchlights cutting through the white wilderness like predatory eyes. Atlas led her through a maze of snow-laden pines, his powerful frame carving a path that seemed impossible for a civilian to follow. Yet Raven kept pace, her breathing controlled, her movements efficient. When a branch snapped too close behind them, she instinctively rolled left, taking cover behind a fallen log with the practiced ease of someone trained for combat. The dog paused, studying her with those unnaturally intelligent eyes, then continued deeper into the forest. They reached an abandoned cabin just as the helicopter passed overhead, its rotors churning the snow into blinding clouds. Atlas pressed against the weathered door, which opened with a creak that spoke of long abandonment. Inside, dust motes danced in shafts of gray light filtering through grimy windows. But it wasn't empty. A photograph lay on the rough wooden table, its edges curled with age. Raven picked it up with trembling fingers and felt her world tilt sideways. The image showed two people in military dress uniforms, a man with dark hair and kind eyes, unmistakably Garrett Blackstone. Beside him stood a woman with striking blue hair and porcelain skin. The woman wore the same face that Raven saw in mirrors, but her eyes held confidence and purpose that felt like memories from someone else's life. "Frost, stay with me." The voice whispered through her mind like an echo from a dream. Garrett's voice, urgent and desperate, calling a name that felt right in ways she couldn't understand. Atlas approached the table and nuzzled the metal box attached to his collar. When Raven's fingers found the hidden latch, it opened to reveal a data chip smaller than her thumbnail. The moment she touched it, more fragments surfaced, flashes of laboratory lights, the sting of needles. Garrett's hand holding hers as consciousness faded. Subject 46, responding normally to memory suppression. A cold female voice echoed from somewhere deep in her memory. Subject 47's termination has been confirmed. Termination, not death, termination. Before we dive deeper into this chilling mystery, tell us where you are watching from. And if this story of lost memories and loyal companions touches your heart, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Your support helps us bring you more incredible stories of survival, mystery, and the unbreakable bonds that can transcend even death itself. The radio static from her past dissolved as real voices approached the cabin. Atlas positioned himself between Raven and the door, every muscle tense with protective instinct. "Colonel Morrison, sir." The transmission crackled through military radios outside. "Any sign of Subject 46? Negative, but she can't have gone far in this weather. Dr. Hartwell wants her back in the lab before nightfall." Raven pressed herself against the cabin's back wall, her mind racing. These weren't search and rescue personnel. They were hunting her with the methodical precision of a military operation. And whoever Dr. Hartwell was, she had been involved in whatever had happened to both Garrett and herself. Atlas moved to a loose floorboard and pawed at it insistently. Beneath the wood lay a waterproof case containing more photographs, military identification cards, and a small recording device. The ID showed Garrett Blackstone, Navy SEAL, classified clearance. But there was another ID underneath, one that made Raven's hands shake. Lieutenant Commander Raven Sterling, Special Operations Command, codename Frost. The recording device activated at her touch, and Garrett's voice filled the small cabin with warmth that cut through her confusion like sunlight through storm clouds. Frost, if you're hearing this, then something went wrong with the mission. Dr. Hartwell's been selling enhanced soldier data to hostile forces. We volunteered for Project Lazarus because we believed we could make a difference, but she's been using the program to create super soldiers for the highest bidder. His voice grew urgent. If I don't make it out of this, remember that I love you, and trust Atlas. He knows where to find the evidence. The recording ended with a finality that left Raven staring at the device with growing horror. Garrett's words carried the weight of a man who knew he wasn't coming home. Atlas suddenly whined, a sound of such deep grief that it cut straight through Raven's heart. The dog moved to the photograph of her and Garrett, nuzzling it gently before looking up at her with eyes that held unmistakable sorrow. "He's gone, isn't he?" she whispered. Atlas's response was another low whine, and he pressed his massive head against her leg as if seeking comfort from the only connection he had left to his lost master. The sound of footsteps surrounded the cabin. Through the window, Raven saw military personnel taking positions, but their movements were wrong, too casual for an official operation, too coordinated for coincidence. "Sergeant Cross," a new voice commanded from outside. "Breach and clear, non-lethal if possible, but don't hesitate if she resists." Atlas showed his teeth in a silent snarl, but before anyone could move, a different voice cut through the tension. "Stand down, gentlemen." The speaker emerged from behind the cabin, a weathered man in his 50s wearing sergeant's stripes. "Ma'am, my name is Mason Cross. I'm here to help." His eyes held the same kind of intelligence she'd seen in Atlas, and when the dog relaxed slightly at his presence, Raven made a calculated decision to trust him. "The colonel's team will be back in 30 minutes, Cross said, moving quickly to help her gather the evidence. "But there's something you need to understand about Garrett Blackstone." He led them through the cabin's rear window into the forest beyond, where a hidden trail wound deeper into the wilderness. As they walked, Cross spoke in low, urgent tones. "Garrett died a year ago during a classified operation. Officially, it was equipment failure during a deep cover mission. Unofficially," he paused, studying her reaction, "he discovered something that got him killed." The words hit her like physical blows, dead for a year. Whatever memories she thought she'd been recovering, whatever connection she felt to the man in the photographs, it was all based on someone who no longer existed. "The Project Lazarus program," Cross continued, "was supposed to create enhanced soldiers for special operations. Garrett and his partner, you, volunteered for the experimental procedures, but Garrett discovered that Dr. Hartwell was selling the technology to foreign governments. They emerged at a larger compound hidden among the trees, a research facility that looked nothing like standard military construction. The buildings were sleek and modern, with reinforced security that spoke of classified operations far beyond normal clearance levels. This is where they brought you both for the enhancement procedures," Cross explained. "Garrett died during his final session. You survived, but they suppressed your memories to prevent you from exposing what he discovered." Atlas trotted beside them, his behavior now making heartbreaking sense. The dog wasn't leading them to find Garrett. He was leading them to understand what had happened to him. A figure approached through the trees, tall, confident, wearing the uniform of a Navy captain. His smile was warm and familiar, triggering recognition that felt like coming home. "Raven, thank goodness you're safe." Captain Blake Donovan opened his arms as if expecting an embrace. "We've been searching everywhere for you." But Atlas remained tense, positioning himself between Raven and the approaching officer. The dog's instincts had been right about everything else. "Blake?" The name felt right on her tongue, carrying the weight of shared history and trust. "I know this must be confusing," Blake continued, his voice gentle with practiced concern. "The memory suppression treatments can cause disorientation, but you've been missing for 3 days since the anniversary memorial service." "Anniversary memorial service?" Raven's voice was barely a whisper. Cross stepped forward, his expression grim. "For Garrett. It's been exactly 1 year since he died in that laboratory." The impact of those words left Raven reeling. Not just dead for a year. Whatever she thought she remembered, whatever love she felt for the man in the photographs, it was mourning for someone who had been gone longer than her conscious memories could reach. "The trauma of losing him triggered a psychological breakdown," Blake explained, with professional sympathy. You've been receiving treatment for survivor's guilt and post-traumatic stress. The memory suppression was therapeutic, designed to help you process the loss gradually. But Cross was studying Blake with professional suspicion. Captain, if this is therapeutic treatment, why are armed teams hunting her through the forest? Blake's friendly demeanor didn't waver, but something cold flickered in his eyes. Dr. Hartwell believes she may be experiencing a dangerous psychological episode. For her own safety and the safety of others, we need to bring her back to medical supervision. Raven studied Blake's face, searching for the friend she felt she should remember. But Atlas's continued agitation nagged at her instincts. Dogs didn't lie about threats. How did Garrett die? She asked directly. Blake's expression grew pained. Equipment failure during neural interface installation. His enhanced physiology rejected the modifications. Despite all efforts to save him, cardiac arrest was irreversible. The clinical language felt wrong for describing the death of someone she'd apparently loved, but Cross was nodding grimly in confirmation. I was part of the investigation team, Cross said quietly. Garrett died on the operating table. The official cause was enhancement rejection syndrome. The tension is building, and you can feel something massive coming, can't you? If you're as captivated by Raven's journey as we are, show some love by hitting that like button, and let us know in the comments what you think really happened to Garrett. A new voice emerged from deeper in the trees, cold and clinical. Actually, Staff Sergeant Cross, the official cause was experimental protocol deviation. Dr. Sloan Hartwell materialized from the shadows like a ghost, flanked by 2 soldiers in unmarked tactical gear. She was exactly what Raven had expected. Mid-50s, silver hair pulled into a severe bun, eyes that studied people like specimens under a microscope. Subject 46, Hartwell addressed Raven with clinical detachment. Your disappearance from the memorial service caused considerable concern. Grief-induced psychological breaks can be dangerous without proper medical supervision. Memorial service, Raven repeated numbly. She had apparently been mourning Garrett's death just days ago, even if she couldn't remember it now. The annual commemoration of Subject 47's sacrifice, Hartwell explained matter-of-factly. His death contributed valuable data to our understanding of enhancement rejection patterns. Very unfortunate, but scientifically significant. Cross stepped protectively closer to Raven. Doctor, discussing classified research details isn't appropriate for therapeutic intervention. Staff Sergeant Cross, you're exceeding your clearance parameters, Hartwell replied coolly. This situation requires medical rather than security oversight. Blake moved closer to Raven, his expression filled with concerned authority. Raven, we need to get you back to proper care. The anniversary of Garrett's death has clearly triggered a severe dissociative episode, but Atlas was growing increasingly agitated, positioning himself between Raven and all 3 authority figures. The dog's enhanced intelligence seemed to be processing threats that normal perception couldn't detect. If Garrett has been dead for a year, Raven asked slowly, why does Atlas still carry his equipment? The question seemed to catch everyone off guard. Blake recovered first, his explanation smooth and practiced. Atlas was Garrett's K9 partner. After his death, the dog experienced severe separation anxiety. Allowing him to keep some of Garrett's gear has been therapeutic for the animal's psychological adjustment. Hartwell nodded in clinical agreement. Animal psychology often requires familiar objects to process loss. The equipment provides comfort without understanding. But Cross was studying the metal box on Atlas's collar with professional interest. That doesn't look like standard K9 gear. What kind of equipment did Garrett carry? Classified research materials, Hartwell replied quickly. Neural interface monitoring devices, biological sensors, enhancement tracking equipment, all standards for Project Lazarus subjects. Atlas suddenly bolted from the group, racing toward the research facility with purposeful urgency. His claws clicked on the forest floor as he stopped at a specific building and barked once, sharp and demanding. Atlas, heel! Blake commanded, but the dog ignored him completely. Interesting, Hartwell observed with clinical fascination. His conditioning appears to be degrading. Animal subjects sometimes experience delayed trauma responses. Cross watched Atlas's behavior with growing concern. That's not traumatic behavior. That's the target indication. The dog's trying to show us something specific. Atlas barked again, more urgently this time, then trotted to a different building before returning to the first one. His pattern was clearly deliberate, designed to communicate specific information. He's indicating multiple buildings, Cross noted with professional assessment. That's intelligence-gathering behavior, not grief or trauma. Blake's composure showed the first crack. Staff Sergeant, you're reading too much into animal behavior. But Raven was watching Atlas with growing understanding. The dog wasn't mourning Garrett's death. He was trying to expose something about how Garrett had died. "Show me," she said to Atlas quietly. The dog immediately trotted to the nearest research building and pawed at a reinforced door marked with biohazard warnings. When Blake moved to intercept them, Atlas positioned himself between the captain and the door, showing teeth in clear warning. "Atlas, stand down," Blake commanded again, but his voice carried undertones of anxiety rather than authority. "Why is the dog protecting that particular building?" Cross asked pointedly. Hartwell's clinical mask showed the first signs of strain. Animal behavior during grief responses can be unpredictable. He's probably seeking familiar scents related to his former handler. But Atlas was scratching at the door with increasing urgency, whining in a pattern that sounded almost like communication. When Raven approached, the dog's agitation focused on the access panel beside the door. "The biometric scanner," she observed. "It's been used recently." Blake stepped forward quickly. "Raven, that's not relevant to your treatment. We need to focus on getting you proper medical attention." "Whose biometrics?" Cross asked, studying the scanner with professional curiosity. Hartwell's response was too quick, too practiced. "Multiple personnel access this facility for ongoing research. The scanner logs are classified," but Raven had noticed something that made her blood run cold. The biometric scanner showed the most recent access time, 48 hours ago, 2 days after Garrett had supposedly been dead for a year. Atlas carried specialized military-grade GPS tracking equipment designed for extreme Arctic conditions. These rugged navigation devices feature advanced satellite connectivity and emergency beacon capabilities originally developed for special operations forces. The sophisticated monitoring systems include biometric sensors and encrypted communication protocols that ensure reliable performance even in the harshest environments where conventional civilian electronics would completely fail under extreme operational stress. "Doctor," Cross said slowly, "if this facility has been sealed since Subject 47's death, why are the access logs showing recent entry?" "Routine maintenance and security checks," Hartwell replied, but her clinical composure was cracking. "Classified research requires ongoing monitoring even when active projects are suspended." Blake moved closer to Raven, his concern now edged with urgency. "These details aren't important for your recovery. What matters is processing Garrett's death in a healthy therapeutic environment." But Raven was studying the building Atlas had indicated, noting details that her enhanced tactical awareness was processing automatically. Fresh tire tracks in the snow, recently cleared ventilation grates, power cables that showed signs of continuous use rather than maintenance-level activity. "This building isn't abandoned," she said quietly. "Someone's been using it regularly." Cross followed her gaze, his security training recognizing the same indicators. Recent vehicle access, active power consumption, cleared air filtration. This facility is operational. Atlas moved to another door and repeated his urgent pawing behavior. This entrance showed even more obvious signs of recent use. Keycard access logs, worn door handles, footprints in the snow that couldn't be more than hours old. "Atlas is showing us an active research facility," Raven concluded with growing certainty, "not a memorial or abandoned laboratory." Hartwell's scientific detachment finally cracked entirely. "You don't understand the complexities of ongoing research protocols. Just because Subject 47 expired doesn't mean his contributions to the project ended." "Expired?" Cross repeated the clinical term with growing alarm. "You're talking about a human being who died, not laboratory equipment." "Subject 47's enhancement data continues to provide valuable insights," Hartwell insisted. "His death, while unfortunate, generated crucial information about rejection patterns and physiological limitations." Blake tried to regain control of the situation. "Doctor, discussing classified research details isn't appropriate in front of unauthorized personnel." But Raven was putting together pieces that painted a horrifying picture. Garrett hadn't just died during enhancement procedures. He'd been experimented on until his death, and somehow his body or his research was still being used a year later. "You preserved him," she said with dawning horror. "You kept Garrett's body for continued experimentation." The words hung in the air like an accusation that no one wanted to confront directly. Hartwell's response was clinically precise. Tissue preservation allows for ongoing analysis of enhancement effects, standard procedure for subjects who experience rejection syndrome. You're conducting experiments on a dead soldier, Cross stated flatly, his hand moving instinctively toward his weapon. We're advancing medical science using properly preserved biological materials, Hartwell corrected. All procedures are conducted within ethical research parameters. Atlas moved to a third building and began the same urgent behavior pattern. But this time, his reaction was different, less urgent, more mournful. He whined softly while pawing at the door, his body language suggesting profound sadness. "That's where they keep him," Raven whispered, understanding flooding through her with sickening clarity. Blake stepped between her and the building Atlas had indicated. "Raven, this isn't healthy for your recovery. Obsessing over Garrett's death will only make the trauma worse." But Cross was watching Atlas's behavior with professional assessment. "The dog isn't traumatized. He's trying to show us evidence." "Evidence of what?" Blake demanded. "Of how Garrett really died," Raven replied, her voice growing stronger with conviction, "and what they've been doing with his body ever since." Hartwell studied Raven with renewed clinical interest. "Your memory recovery is progressing faster than anticipated. Most subjects take weeks to integrate suppressed experiences." "Most subjects," Cross repeated slowly. "How many people have you put through this program?" "Project Lazarus has processed 46 subjects over 3 years," Hartwell replied with scientific precision. "Subject 47 was our most complete enhancement success before rejection syndrome terminated the process." "And Subject 46? Cross gestured toward Raven. "Ongoing therapeutic maintenance," Hartwell explained. Her enhancement integration was successful, but psychological adjustment to her partner's loss required memory modification. The clinical language couldn't disguise what they were describing. Hartwell had been conducting human experimentation on American soldiers, and when Garrett discovered the truth, they'd killed him and suppressed Raven's memories to prevent exposure. Atlas suddenly barked once, sharp and urgent, as the sound of approaching vehicles reached them from the access road. Hartwell's reinforcements were arriving, and their window for investigation was closing rapidly. "We need to move," Cross declared, checking his sidearm. "Whatever evidence this dog is trying to show us, we need to see it before backup arrives." Blake blocked their path to the building Atlas had indicated. "I can't allow unauthorized access to classified research facilities." "Since when is investigating the death of an American soldier unauthorized?" Cross shot back. "Since the investigation could compromise ongoing national security operations," Blake replied, but his voice lacked conviction. Raven studied Blake's face, seeing through the mask of friendly concern to something harder underneath. You knew what really happened to Garrett." Blake's expression grew pained. "I knew he died serving his country. The details of how enhanced soldier technology works don't change that." But Atlas was growing increasingly agitated, moving between the 3 buildings he'd indicated while barking with urgent insistence. Whatever the dog was trying to communicate, time was running out to understand it. "Hold on to your seats because we're about to reveal the truth that will change everything. But first, if this story has you completely hooked, slash that like button and share this video with someone who loves mysteries as much as you do." "Atlas knows something specific about these buildings," Raven concluded with growing certainty. "Something Garrett discovered before he died." Cross moved toward the building Atlas had indicated with mournful behavior. "If there's evidence of what happened to Subject 47, we need to secure it." Blake stepped into his path, hand resting on his sidearm. "Staff Sergeant, you're interfering with classified research operations." "I'm investigating the suspicious death of a Navy SEAL," Cross corrected grimly. "Stand aside, Captain." The standoff stretched between them while vehicles approached through the forest. Hartwell's backup was arriving in force, and their conversation was about to become a confrontation. Atlas made the decision for them. The dog bolted to the mournful building and threw himself against the reinforced door with enough force to trigger the emergency sensors. Alarms began blaring throughout the facility, while red lights flashed in patterns designed to signal security breaches. "Emergency protocols activated," Hartwell announced with clinical satisfaction. "All personnel must evacuate to prevent containment compromise." But Cross recognized a tactical opportunity. Emergency protocols also require immediate documentation of any unauthorized access. "We have legal authority to investigate what triggered the alarm." Blake looked between the blaring alarms and Hartwell's calculating expression, clearly weighing competing loyalties. "Doctor, If there's been a security breach, we need to follow proper investigation procedures. The breach was caused by an untrained animal, Hartwell replied dismissively. No investigation is required. Atlas continued barking and pawing at the emergency door, which had been designed to open during security breaches. The dog's enhanced intelligence clearly understood the facility's safety protocols better than the humans trying to control the situation. He's not trying to break in, Raven realized suddenly. He's trying to break someone out. The words hung in the air like a revelation that changed everything they thought that they understood. If Atlas was trying to rescue someone from the facility, then someone inside needed rescuing. But everyone had confirmed that Garrett had been dead for a year. Cross moved to the emergency access panel and began entering security override codes. As base security, I have authority to investigate any potential containment breach. Staff Sergeant Cross, those codes are above your clearance level, Blake warned. Emergency protocols superseded normal clearance restrictions, Cross replied, continuing to work with the access panel. If there's a biological hazard, everyone on this base could be at risk. Military contractors operating in classified environments require specialized insurance coverage that exceeds standard policies. These comprehensive protection frameworks include advanced liability coverage for high-risk operations, equipment replacement guarantees, and legal representation services. The premium insurance packages provide complete financial security for personnel working in sensitive capacities where conventional coverage would be inadequate for the unique risks and specialized equipment involved in classified military operations. The access panel accepted Cross's emergency codes, and the reinforced door began opening with mechanical precision. Atlas immediately pushed through the widening gap, disappearing into the facility's interior with purposeful determination. "Atlas, wait!" Raven called, but the dog was already gone. Cross drew his weapon and followed his security training, demanding investigation of any potential threat. Blake hesitated, torn between conflicting orders and growing uncertainty about what they might discover. Hartwell watched them enter the facility with clinical detachment. "You're interfering with classified research that operates under the highest levels of government authorization. Then you should have no problem explaining what we find inside," Cross replied grimly. The facility's interior was sterile and modern, all white walls and polished surfaces that reflected overhead fluorescent lighting. But the smell hit them immediately. Antiseptic and ozone, with an undertone of something organic and deeply unsettling. Atlas raced through the corridors with confident navigation, clearly familiar with the layout, despite supposedly having no reason to know the building's interior. He led them past laboratories filled with equipment that looked more suited to advanced neurosurgery than military enhancement research. "What kind of enhancement procedures require brain surgery equipment?" Cross asked pointedly. "Neural interface installation," Hartwell replied with clinical precision. "Enhanced soldiers require direct nervous system modification to achieve optimal performance parameters." But Atlas had stopped at a specific laboratory door and was scratching urgently at the reinforced surface. Through the observation window, they could see a medical facility equipped with surgical chairs and monitoring equipment that was clearly designed for extended procedures rather than simple enhancements. "This is where Garrett died," Raven said with sudden certainty. Blake moved beside her, his expression pained. "Where he died serving his country. The details don't honor his sacrifice." But Cross was studying the laboratory setup with professional assessment. "This equipment is designed for long-term life support, not enhancement procedures. Why would you need cardiovascular monitoring for simple neural modifications?" Hartwell's clinical mask showed strain. "Enhanced soldier creation requires monitoring of all physiological systems during modification procedures." Atlas moved to another observation window and began his urgent behavior again. But this laboratory was different, active, recently used, with monitoring equipment that was currently running rather than simply available. "Someone's in there," Cross observed, studying the active life support readings on the displays visible through the window. "Tissue preservation requires ongoing monitoring," Hartwell explained quickly. "Biological samples must be maintained within specific parameters to remain viable for research." But the readings on the monitors weren't consistent with tissue preservation. They showed active brain patterns, cardiovascular function, and respiratory activity that indicated a living subject rather than preserved remains. "Those are the vital signs of someone alive," Raven said quietly, her enhanced medical training supplying the interpretation of the displayed data. Blake stepped between them and the observation window. "You're misunderstanding complex medical equipment. Preserved tissue can show electrical activity without consciousness." But Atlas was going wild at the sight of the monitors, barking with desperate urgency while pawing frantically at the laboratory door. The dog's behavior was unmistakably that of someone trying to reach a living companion in distress. Cross moved to the laboratory access panel and began entering his security codes. "If there's someone alive in there who needs medical attention, we have a duty to provide assistance." "Staff Sergeant, you're exceeding your authority," Hartwell warned, but her clinical composure was cracking rapidly. "My authority extends to investigating potential prisoner abuse on this base," Cross replied without stopping his work with the access panel. "And those monitors suggest someone is being held against their will." The access panel accepted his codes, and the laboratory door began opening with the same mechanical precision as before. Atlas immediately pushed through, racing toward the active monitoring station with desperate determination. Inside the laboratory, surrounded by life support equipment and neural monitoring devices, was a medical chair equipped with restraints designed for long-term immobilization. And in that chair, kept alive but unconscious by advanced medical technology, was a figure that made everyone present freeze in shock. Garrett Blackstone was alive. He was emaciated from a year of forced unconsciousness, his head shaved and marked with surgical sites where neural interface ports had been installed. Tubes and wires connected him to machines that monitored every aspect of his physiology while keeping him suspended between life and death. But he was breathing, his heart was beating. And according to the neural monitors, his brain activity suggested awareness despite the induced unconsciousness. "Holy cow," Cross breathed, staring at the man everyone had told them was dead. "He's been alive this whole time." Atlas leaped onto the medical chair, whining and nuzzling Garrett's unresponsive face with desperate affection. The dog's behavior finally made complete sense. He hadn't been mourning a dead master, he'd been trying to rescue a living one. Blake stared at the monitoring equipment with growing horror. "They told us he died. They showed us death certificates, memorial service, burial records. We told you what was necessary for operational security," Hartwell replied with clinical detachment. Subject 47's apparent death allowed for uninterrupted research on enhancement rejection patterns. "Research," Cross said flatly. "You've been experimenting on an unconscious soldier for a year." "We've been advancing medical science using a subject who voluntarily entered the program," Hartwell corrected. "His enhancement data has contributed invaluable insights into neural modification techniques." Raven approached the medical chair where Garrett lay motionless, tubes and wires connecting him to machines that had kept him alive but unconscious for 12 months. Atlas pressed against her side, seeking comfort while maintaining protective watch over his true master. "You tortured him," she said quietly. A sigh, her voice carrying steel that cut through the laboratory's antiseptic atmosphere. "We maintained him," Hartwell replied with the same clinical tone. "His neural modifications required ongoing monitoring and adjustment to prevent total system failure." "For a year," Cross added grimly. "You've kept an American soldier in induced unconsciousness for a year while experimenting on his brain." Blake was staring at the neural interface ports surgically installed in Garrett's skull, understanding finally dawning on his face. The memorial service, the death certificates, the official records, it was all fabricated. "Operational necessity," Hartwell confirmed. "Project Lazarus requires absolute secrecy to prevent interference from personnel lacking appropriate scientific perspective." Cross began working to disconnect the machines keeping Garrett unconscious, his movements careful but determined. "We're getting him out of here. Staff Sergeant, removing Subject 47 from life support could cause irreversible neural damage," Hartwell warned. "Keeping him here has already caused irreversible neural damage," Cross shot back. "How many other soldiers have disappeared into this program?" Atlas moved to Garrett's side and began gently licking his face, as if trying to wake him through familiar affection. The dog's behavior suggested intelligence and emotional depth that went far beyond normal canine capabilities. "The enhancement procedures," Raven said slowly, understanding flooding through her recovered memories. "You didn't just modify our physical abilities, you enhanced our intelligence and emotional capacity as well. Comprehensive enhancement requires modification of all cognitive systems," Hartwell confirmed with clinical pride. "Intelligence amplification, emotional regulation, sensory enhancement, Creating the perfect soldier requires optimization of the entire nervous system. Creating the perfect slave, Cross corrected grimly, soldiers who can't refuse orders or question missions. Blake was studying the laboratory equipment with a growing alarm. Doctor, the authorization I received for this program specified voluntary enhancement for special operations. Nothing about unconscious experimentation or psychological control. Captain Donovan, your authorization was appropriate for your clearance level, Hartwell replied dismissively. The full scope of Project Lazarus operates under executive authority that supersedes normal military oversight. Cross had succeeded in disconnecting several of the machines maintaining Garrett's unconsciousness, but the seal remained unresponsive. How long before he regains consciousness? Induced unconsciousness using our enhancement protocols can require days or weeks for full reversal, Hartwell explained with scientific detachment. Premature awakening could cause permanent psychological damage. But, as if responding to Atlas's continued attention, Garrett's eyes began to flutter. The neural monitors showed increasing brain activity as consciousness slowly returned after a year of artificial suspension. What an incredible journey we've shared together. If this story moved you, please subscribe for more amazing tales of courage and loyalty. And stick around until the very end. We have a special message that will touch your heart. Garrett, Raven leaned closer to the medical chair, searching his face for signs of recognition. His eyes opened slowly, unfocused and confused. But when they found Atlas, something sparked in their depths. The dog's tail wagged frantically as Garrett's hand moved weakly to scratch behind the familiar ears. Atlas, Garrett whispered, his voice hoarse from disuse. Good boy, I knew you'd find me. The reunion between soldier and dog was heartbreaking in its simple devotion. Atlas had spent a year trying to rescue his partner, and now that partnership was finally restored. But Garrett's gaze moved to Raven, and confusion filled his expression. Frost? What? Where are we? What happened to your memories? They suppressed them, she explained gently. Made me believe you were dead for a year while they kept you unconscious for experiments. Garrett struggled to sit up, his body weak from prolonged immobilization, but his mind clearly functioning. The program? Hartwell's been selling enhanced soldiers to foreign buyers. We found the evidence. Evidence that we've now recovered, Cross confirmed, helping support Garrett as he attempted to stand, along with proof of illegal human experimentation on American service members. Blake was staring at Garrett with a mixture of relief and horror. The memorial service I attended, the death certificate I signed off on, the reports I filed, it was all fabricated. You were fed information appropriate for operational security, Hartwell replied with clinical detachment. Project Lazarus operates under authority that supersedes normal military oversight. Whose authority? Cross demanded. Who authorized torturing American soldiers for scientific research? Hartwell's clinical mask finally cracked completely. You don't understand the forces involved in this research. Enhanced soldier technology has implications for national security that extend far beyond individual casualties. Individual casualties, Raven repeated, her voice carrying deadly quiet. You're talking about human beings who trusted you to enhance their capabilities, not experiment them into unconsciousness. Atlas had positioned himself protectively between Garrett and Hartwell, his enhanced intelligence clearly recognizing her as a threat to his partner's safety. The dog's loyalty had survived a year of separation and would clearly continue protecting both seals regardless of circumstances. Garrett was studying the laboratory equipment with growing awareness of what had been done to him. How long was I unconscious? 12 months, Cross answered grimly. Everyone thought you were dead. 12 months of neural monitoring and modification, Hartwell corrected with scientific precision. Your enhancement data contributed invaluable insights into consciousness transfer and behavioral modification techniques. Consciousness transfer, Blake repeated slowly. What exactly have you been transferring consciousness to? Professional military legal consultation services provide essential support for personnel facing complex security clearance issues and classification disputes. These specialized legal frameworks offer expert representation for cases involving memory loss, psychological evaluations, and classified information protocols. The comprehensive legal protection includes consultation with former military prosecutors and security experts who understand the intricate regulations governing special operations personnel and classified material handling procedures. Enhanced soldiers don't require personal histories or emotional attachments that might compromise mission effectiveness, Hartwell explained matter-of-factly. We preserve useful skills and discard psychological elements that interfere with optimal performance. You've been stealing people's personalities, Raven said with dawning horror, taking their skills and memories while erasing everything that makes them human. We've been creating perfect soldiers, Hartwell corrected. Assets that can operate in hostile territory without emotional compromise or loyalty conflicts. Cross was helping Garrett stand while processing the full scope of what they'd discovered. How many soldiers have you processed through this program? 46 documented subjects over 3 years, Hartwell replied with clinical precision. Approximately 60% achieved successful enhancement integration. And the other 40%? Blake asked, though his expression suggested he already knew the answer. Enhancement rejection syndrome, Hartwell confirmed. Unfortunate but scientifically valuable casualties in the advancement of human potential. You killed 20 people, Cross stated flatly. We lost 20 subjects to enhancement incompatibility, Hartwell corrected. Their sacrifice advanced our understanding of neural modification techniques. Garrett was growing stronger as consciousness fully returned, his enhanced physiology accelerating recovery from the prolonged unconsciousness. The evidence we gathered before my capture, financial records, communication logs, sales documentation. Where is it? Atlas moved to Raven's side and nuzzled the metal box still attached to his collar. When she opened it, the data chip inside now made complete sense. It contained proof of everything Hartwell had been doing. Insurance, Garrett confirmed with grim satisfaction. Everything she's done, everyone she's sold technology to, every American soldier she's experimented on, it's all documented and encrypted on that device. Blake was studying the laboratory equipment with a growing understanding of his unwitting complicity. The enhancement program I thought I was supporting, it was human trafficking disguised as military research. It was advancing American military capabilities through innovative enhancement techniques, Hartwell insisted, but her authority was crumbling rapidly. It was selling American soldiers to foreign governments as programmable weapons, Raven corrected with cold fury. The sound of vehicles outside grew louder, accompanied by the distinctive whine of helicopter rotors. Hartwell's security response was arriving in force, and their window for escape was closing rapidly. Cross checked his ammunition while assessing their tactical situation. How many exits does this facility have? 3 primary, 2 emergencies, Blake answered automatically, but the emergency exits require specific clearance codes. Codes that I have, Cross confirmed. And now that we know the truth, we're leaving with the evidence and both enhanced subjects. Atlas moved between them all, his enhanced intelligence clearly processing the tactical discussion. When Cross moved toward the laboratory exit, the dog placed a paw on his arm, not preventing movement, but ensuring he understood the continuing danger. Hartwell's backup won't be interested in capture and interrogation, Garrett warned, his voice growing stronger. They'll be coming to eliminate witnesses and destroy evidence. Then we don't give them the chance, Cross declared. Emergency extraction, preserve the evidence, and expose this program to proper authorities. Blake looked at each of them in turn, his decision crystallizing in the face of overwhelming proof. I swore an oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Dr. Hartwell and whoever's backing her qualify as domestic enemies. Atlas trotted to the laboratory exit and barked once, sharp and urgent, as the sound of tactical teams reached the building's exterior. The dog's enhanced senses were clearly tracking multiple threats converging on their location. Emergency exits are accessible through the sub-level access tunnels, Blake announced, but we have maybe 5 minutes before they seal all escape routes. Raven supported Garrett as they moved toward the laboratory exit, Atlas taking point position with protective alertness. The evidence they carried could expose the entire Project Lazarus program, but only if they survived to present it to honest authorities. The data chip contains financial records, communication logs, and complete documentation of every sale and experiment, Garrett explained as they moved. Foreign buyers, government contacts, enhanced soldier specifications, everything needed to prosecute this program, and everyone supporting it. Cross led them through corridors designed for rapid evacuation, his security training guiding them toward emergency exits while avoiding areas where tactical teams would establish ambush positions. Where do we take this evidence? Blake asked. If Project Lazarus has support at high levels of government, Normal channels might be compromised. Military Criminal Investigative Service has clean contacts, Cross suggested. People who weren't involved in authorizing this program. Atlas suddenly stopped and growled low in his throat, warning of threats ahead. Through the corridor windows, they could see tactical teams establishing perimeters around the facility's primary exits. "They're sealing us in," Cross observed grimly. "Not sealing," Garrett corrected with a tactical assessment. "Channeling. They want us to use specific exit routes they can control." Blake studied the facility layout from his command authority perspective. Emergency protocols override normal exit restrictions, but they also activate tracking systems that monitor all movement through emergency routes. "So they know exactly where we'll go," Raven concluded. "Unless we don't go where they expect," Garrett replied, with the first smile he had managed since regaining consciousness. Atlas moved to a maintenance access panel and pawed at it insistently. When Cross examined the panel, he discovered it provided access to utility tunnels that weren't part of the standard facility layout. Service access, Cross realized. The dog knows about passages that aren't on the official building plans. "Atlas spent months learning this facility's layout while I was unconscious," Garrett explained. "Enhanced intelligence allowed him to map every access route and security vulnerability." The utility tunnel was narrow and uncomfortable, but it provided concealed movement away from the facility without triggering standard security monitoring. Atlas led them through darkness with confident navigation, his enhanced senses guiding them around obstacles and potential detection points. They emerged from the tunnel system at a maintenance shed several hundred yards from the main facility, well beyond the perimeter Hartwell's security teams had established. Through the trees, they could see tactical teams entering the laboratory where they'd found Garrett, searching for evidence that was no longer there. "What now?" Blake asked, studying the tactical situation with professional assessment. Cross was already activating his emergency communication equipment. "Now we contact the Military Criminal Investigative Service and prepare to expose the biggest human experimentation scandal in modern military history." Raven looked at the data chip that contained proof of everything Hartwell had done, then at Garrett, who had survived a year of unconscious experimentation, then at Atlas, whose loyalty had made their escape possible. "Project Lazarus is finished," she said quietly, but her voice carried steel that cut through the cold air. "And everyone responsible for torturing American soldiers will face justice." The evidence was secure, the witnesses were safe, and the truth about Project Lazarus was finally ready to be revealed to the world. In the distance, emergency sirens wailed as Hartwell's facility went into lockdown, searching for prisoners who were no longer there, and evidence that was already beyond their reach. Atlas had spent a year trying to rescue his partner, and now that mission was finally complete. The hunt was over. Justice was just beginning. As they disappeared into the Alaska wilderness with proof that would destroy the careers of everyone involved in illegal human experimentation, Raven felt her memories continuing to return. Not just the suppressed recollections of her relationship with Garrett, but the enhanced capabilities that made her far more dangerous than anyone hunting them could imagine. Dr. Hartwell had created enhanced soldiers designed to be perfect weapons. She was about to discover exactly how perfect those weapons could be when turned against their creators. The game was far from over. It was just beginning. The Alaska wilderness stretched endlessly before them, a vast expanse of snow-covered terrain that could hide them or kill them with equal efficiency. Cross's emergency beacon crackled with static as he attempted to establish contact with Military Criminal Investigative Service, while behind them, the distant sound of helicopter rotors grew steadily louder. "MCIS Anchorage, this is Staff Sergeant Mason Cross, badge number 7492, he spoke into the encrypted communicator with professional urgency. "I need immediate contact with Agent Sarah Patterson regarding illegal human experimentation on military personnel." The response came through layers of static and protocol verification, but the voice on the other end carried authority that cut through the interference. "Staff Sergeant Cross, this is Agent Patterson. Your emergency beacon indicates you're in a classified zone. What's your status?" Cross looked at their small group, 2 enhanced soldiers recovering from psychological trauma, a Navy captain questioning everything he had believed about his service, and a German shepherd whose intelligence clearly exceeded normal canine parameters. "Ma'am, I'm with 2 survivors of Project Lazarus. We have documented evidence of human experimentation, illegal technology sales to foreign governments, and the torture of American service members. The silence that followed stretched long enough for helicopter sounds to grow noticeably closer. When Agent Patterson responded, her voice carried the weight of someone who understood the implications of what she was hearing. Staff Sergeant, Project Lazarus operates under classified authority that supersedes normal investigative jurisdiction. I need you to proceed to the extraction coordinates I'm transmitting now. Blake checked the coordinates on his tactical GPS unit, his expression growing grim. Those coordinates are 15 miles northeast. In this terrain, that's at least a 6-hour hike. 6 hours we don't have, Garrett observed, studying the approaching aircraft through tactical optics he'd recovered from the facility. Hartwell's got 3 helicopters airborne with thermal imaging capabilities. They'll track our heat signatures within 30 minutes. Atlas moved closer to the group, his enhanced senses clearly detecting threats beyond normal human perception. The dog's behavior was focused and alert, but not panicked. He understood their tactical situation and was prepared for whatever action might be necessary. Raven was studying the data chip they had recovered from Garrett's hidden cache, her enhanced memory processing information with speed that surprised even her. The evidence on this device doesn't just document Project Lazarus. It shows connections to other programs, enhanced interrogation, behavioral modification, and something called Project Phoenix. Phoenix, Cross repeated slowly. That's above my clearance level. Blake's face had gone pale. Project Phoenix is executive-level classified. I've seen references in briefing documents, but never operational details. What kind of operational details? Garrett asked, though his expression suggested he already suspected the answer. Resurrection protocols, Blake replied quietly. Procedures for recovering assets from hostile territory when normal extraction isn't possible. The implications settled over them like ice water. If Project Phoenix involved resurrection protocols, then Hartwell's human experimentation might be even more extensive than they had discovered. Atlas suddenly barked once, sharp and urgent, then moved toward a cluster of snow-covered rocks that provided natural concealment. His enhanced intelligence had identified defensive positions before the humans recognized the tactical necessity. Incoming, Cross announced, tracking the helicopter sounds with professional assessment. Multiple aircraft, coordinated search pattern. They'll reach our position in approximately 8 minutes. Raven felt something shifting inside her consciousness. Not memory recovery, but capability activation. Her enhanced physiology was responding to stress, with improvements that went far beyond normal human parameters. Reflexes accelerated, vision sharpened, and tactical awareness expanded to process multiple threat vectors simultaneously. "We don't run," she said quietly, but her voice carried authority that made everyone present pay attention. "We eliminate the threat." Blake stepped closer with concern filling his expression. "Raven, there are 3 military helicopters with trained personnel. We're 4 people and a dog with limited weapons and no air support. We're 2 enhanced soldiers, 1 experienced NCO, 1 knowledgeable officer, and a K-9 unit with capabilities that exceed normal parameters," Raven corrected with growing confidence. "And we have a terrain advantage." Cross was studying their tactical situation with professional interest. "What do you have in mind?" Raven moved to higher ground, her enhanced perception analyzing the approaching aircraft and surrounding terrain with calculation that felt like muscle memory returning. "The helicopters will establish a perimeter and deploy ground teams to sweep the area. Standard search and destroy protocol for escaped assets." "Escaped assets," Garrett repeated grimly. "They're not planning to capture us for questioning." "Dr. Hartwell can't risk exposure to Project Lazarus," Blake confirmed with growing understanding. "Eliminating witnesses is operationally necessary from her perspective." Atlas trotted to Raven's side, his enhanced intelligence clearly processing her tactical assessment and preparing to provide support. The bond between the enhanced soldiers and their K-9 partner was deeper than normal military relationships. It was a partnership enhanced by scientific modification. "The lead helicopter will establish an overwatch while the others deploy personnel," Raven continued with analytical precision. "But their thermal imaging won't distinguish between enhanced and normal human signatures. We use that advantage." Cross checked his weapon and ammunition, understanding dawning on his fists. "Guerrilla tactics. Make them come to us on ground where their air superiority doesn't matter." "Enhanced guerrilla tactics," Raven corrected. "Capabilities they don't know we possess." The helicopter sounds were growing distinctly closer, accompanied by the mechanical whine of engines under stress from flying in challenging weather conditions. Through the trees, they could see the first aircraft approaching, with searchlights cutting through the gray afternoon light. Garrett moved to establish a defensive position among the rocks Atlas had identified, his enhanced reflexes and tactical knowledge combining with a year of suppressed anger at his captors. Time to see if Hartwell's modifications work, as advertised. Blake took position with his sidearm ready, but his expression showed uncertainty about engaging fellow military personnel. These are American soldiers following orders. They might not know what Project Lazarus really involves. American soldiers following illegal orders to eliminate witnesses of human experimentation, Cross corrected grimly. Sometimes the uniform doesn't determine which side is right. The first helicopter established overwatch position exactly as Raven had predicted, hovering at maximum effective range, while the other two aircraft maneuvered to deploy ground teams. Through tactical optics, they could see personnel rappelling from the aircraft with equipment and coordination that spoke of special operations training. 12 personnel deployed, Garrett observed with professional assessment. Full tactical kit, suppressed weapons, night vision capability. They're equipped for silent elimination rather than capture operations. Atlas moved between concealed positions with fluid grace, his enhanced intelligence allowing him to anticipate threats and coordinate with his human partners without verbal communication. The dog's tactical awareness was clearly operating at levels that exceeded normal canine capabilities. Raven felt her enhanced abilities reaching full activation as stress hormones triggered modifications that had been dormant during memory suppression. Her perception of time seemed to slow, allowing detailed analysis of multiple threats while her body prepared for action that would exceed normal human limitations. "Wait for my signal," she instructed quietly. "Let them establish positions before we engage." The ground teams moved through the snow-covered terrain with professional skill, but their search pattern followed predictable special operations doctrine. They were trained to hunt normal human targets, not enhanced soldiers with capabilities that operated beyond standard parameters. Cross tracked their movement through his rifle scope, maintaining fire discipline while calculating range and windage for potential engagements. 800 meters and closing, they're sweeping in a standard grid pattern. Standard tactics against standard opponents, Raven noted with growing tactical confidence. But we're not standard. Blake was monitoring radio communications from the search teams, his command access allowing him to intercept their coordination signals. They're using lethal force authorization. No capture orders. Elimination only. The implications were clear. Hartwell's security teams weren't planning to return them for interrogation or processing. They were conducting an assassination operation against American military personnel to protect illegal human experimentation. Atlas suddenly froze, his enhanced senses detecting something beyond normal perception. The dog's body language communicated urgent warnings about threats that hadn't yet become visible to the humans. Additional contacts, Garrett interpreted Atlas's behavior with practiced understanding. The dog's picking up something our equipment isn't showing. Through enhanced hearing that exceeded normal human range, Raven detected the subtle sound of movement through snow, footsteps with spacing and rhythm that indicated additional personnel approaching from an unexpected direction. "Flanking element," she announced quietly. "At least 6 personnel are moving to cut off our escape routes." Cross adjusted his defensive position to cover the new threat axis while maintaining observation on the primary search teams. 18 hostiles total. They're establishing complete containment. Blake's radio intercepts confirmed the tactical assessment. Ground commander is reporting perimeter established. They're preparing for a coordinated assault on our position. The enhanced soldiers looked at each other, with understanding that transcended normal military communication. Whatever modifications Hartwell had made to their nervous systems were reaching full activation under combat stress, providing capabilities that would surprise their attackers. "Atlas, overwatch," Raven commanded quietly. The dog immediately moved to high ground, positioning himself where enhanced senses could monitor multiple threat directions while remaining concealed from enemy observation. His tactical intelligence was clearly operating at levels that allowed complex battlefield assessment. Garrett checked his recovered weapons with movements that seemed almost supernaturally precise, enhanced reflexes allowing weapon manipulation that exceeded normal human speed and accuracy. Enhanced modification includes improved hand-eye coordination and reaction time. "How much improvement?" Cross asked with professional interest. "Enough," Raven replied with quiet confidence that carried undertones of deadly capability. The first assault team reached engagement range, moving through terrain that provided concealment while advancing toward positions they believed contained normal human targets. Their tactical approach was professional but predictable, following doctrine designed for conventional warfare. Raven's enhanced perception allowed her to track multiple threats simultaneously while calculating optimal engagement timing. Her modifications included not just physical improvements, but cognitive enhancement that provided tactical analysis capability beyond normal human intelligence. 12 seconds until optimal engagement window, she announced with analytical precision. Cross aimed his rifle toward the primary threat, while Blake covered their secondary escape route, both men understanding that enhanced soldiers would provide capabilities they had never witnessed in normal combat operations. Atlas remained perfectly still in his overwatch position, enhanced intelligence processing multiple threat vectors while preparing to provide support at precisely the right moment. 8 seconds. The assault teams continued their approach with professional competence, unaware that their targets possessed capabilities that exceeded the parameters of their mission planning. They were prepared to engage normal human opponents with standard military equipment and training. 4 seconds. Raven's enhanced physiology completed its preparation for action. Adrenaline and modified nervous system responses, combining to provide capability that would demonstrate exactly what Hartwell's human experimentation had created. Execute. The engagement that followed lasted less than 90 seconds, but it redefined everything the participants understood about human capability under stress. Raven moved with speed and precision that seemed to defy normal physics, engaging multiple targets while covering distances that should have been impossible for unassisted human movement. Garrett's enhanced reflexes allowed him to track and engage threats with accuracy that exceeded the capabilities of normal marksmanship training, his modified nervous system providing coordination between perception and action that eliminated wasted motion. Atlas coordinated with both enhanced soldiers through intelligence that operated beyond normal animal cognition, providing tactical support and threat warning with timing that suggested telepathic communication rather than standard K9 training. Cross watched the enhanced soldiers operate with growing amazement and professional respect. Their capabilities exceeded anything he'd witnessed in special operations training, demonstrating that Hartwell's human experimentation had produced results that were both horrifying in their implications and undeniable in their effectiveness. Blake provided overwatch and communication support while processing the reality of what enhanced soldiers could accomplish when their modifications were fully activated. The capabilities he was witnessing exceeded the parameters described in any briefing documents he'd reviewed. When the engagement ended, 18 heavily armed special operations personnel had been neutralized by 2 enhanced soldiers, 1 regular NCO, 1 officer, and a modified K9 unit operating with coordination that seemed almost supernatural. Status report, Raven requested with calm professionalism that contrasted sharply with the devastation they'd just created. All hostile contacts neutralized, Cross replied with professional assessment. No friendly casualties. Enemy equipment secured for intelligence analysis. Garrett was collecting communication devices and tactical equipment from neutralized personnel, his enhanced speed allowing rapid battlefield exploitation. Radio intercepts show additional response teams en route. Estimated arrival is 20 minutes. Atlas trotted between the enhanced soldiers with body language that communicated satisfaction and continued alertness. The dog's tactical intelligence clearly understood that the immediate threat was eliminated, but the larger danger remained. Blake was studying the efficiency with which enhanced soldiers had eliminated trained special operations personnel, finally dawning about what Hartwell's research had actually created. The enhancement procedures, they don't just improve physical capabilities. Comprehensive nervous system modification, Raven confirmed while checking recovered equipment. Cognitive enhancement, sensory improvement, reflexes, coordination, and most importantly, the ability to operate effectively under extreme stress without psychological degradation. Perfect soldiers, Cross observed with mixture of admiration and concern. Perfect weapons, Garrett corrected grimly, designed to follow orders without question and eliminate threats without hesitation. Exactly what Hartwell was selling to foreign governments. The implications settled over them as they prepared to continue toward the extraction coordinates as Agent Patterson had provided. Enhanced soldiers with their capabilities could destabilize military balance worldwide if the technology fell into hostile hands. The data chip documents sales to 12 different countries, Raven said while reviewing the encrypted information. China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, and several terrorist organizations. Hartwell's been providing enhancement technology to every major adversary of the United States. Blake's expression grew increasingly grim as he processed the scope of the betrayal. She's been selling American military superiority to our enemies. She's been selling American soldiers to our enemies, Cross corrected. Enhanced personnel with modified loyalty, Gistian behavior patterns. Atlas moved to point position as they began movement toward extraction coordinates. His enhanced senses providing early warning capability while the group navigated difficult terrain under threat of additional pursuit. The 15-mile journey to extraction coordinates would normally require 6 hours, but enhanced soldiers with modified endurance and navigation capabilities could cover the distance in half that time. Their enhanced physiology provided stamina and terrain adaptation that exceeded normal human limitations. Agent Patterson's extraction team better be prepared for what we're bringing to them, Garrett noted, while maintaining tactical awareness of potential threats. This evidence will destroy careers at the highest levels of government. Cross was monitoring their back trail for signs of pursuit, while processing the implications of what they'd discovered. Military Criminal Investigative Service has protocols for handling corruption cases, but nothing on this scale. Nothing involving human experimentation and technology transfer to hostile nations, Blake added, with growing concern about his own complicity. Everyone who supported Project Lazarus will face court-martial or worse. Raven felt her enhanced memories continuing to recover as they moved through the wilderness, providing increasing clarity about what she and Garrett had discovered before their capture. The evidence shows Project Lazarus was just one component of a larger program. Enhanced interrogation, behavioral modification, consciousness transfer. Hartwell was developing comprehensive control over human psychology and physiology. For sale to whoever paid the highest price, Atlas trotted beside her, his enhanced intelligence clearly processing the conversation while maintaining security awareness. The dog understood that they were carrying information that could expose corruption extending to the highest levels of government. They reached a ridgeline that provided observation over their back trail, and Cross used tactical optics to assess pursuit efforts. Multiple aircraft airborne, ground teams conducting expanded search patterns. They're committing significant resources to stopping us. Because the evidence we carry will end careers and reveal treason at executive levels, Garrett replied, while checking their progress toward extraction coordinates. Hartwell has protection from people who can't afford exposure. Blake was monitoring radio communications from pursuit teams, his command access providing intelligence about their pursuers' capabilities and intentions. They're coordinating with federal agencies now. This has moved beyond military security to national intelligence operations. The implications were staggering. If federal intelligence agencies were supporting Project Lazarus, then exposure of the program would reveal corruption that extended far beyond military medical research. Atlas suddenly stopped and growled low, warning of threats ahead rather than behind. His enhanced senses had detected something that tactical equipment couldn't identify, and his intelligence was clearly processing danger that hadn't yet become obvious. Through enhanced perception that exceeded normal human capability, Raven detected the subtle sound of aircraft engines operating in stealth mode. Helicopters equipped with noise suppression technology designed to avoid detection during clandestine operations. "Airborne intercept," she announced quietly. "They're establishing ambush positions along our route to extraction coordinates." Cross studied the terrain ahead through tactical optics, confirming what enhanced senses had already detected. Federal aircraft with stealth capability. They know exactly where we're going. Agent Patterson's extraction coordinates are compromised, Garrett concluded with tactical analysis. Either her communications were intercepted, or she's part of the operation against us. Blake checked his secure communication equipment, discovering that their encrypted channels were being monitored by agencies with capability that exceeded normal military intelligence. Advanced electronic surveillance. Someone with significant resources is tracking our movement and communications. The enhanced soldiers looked at each other with understanding that transcended normal military coordination. Whatever forces were arrayed against them possessed capability and authority that suggested corruption at the highest levels of government. "We adapt," Raven said quietly, but her voice carried determination that cut through the growing complexity of their situation. "The evidence gets delivered regardless of which agencies are compromised." Atlas moved to higher ground and provided tactical assessment through enhanced intelligence that operated beyond normal canine cognition. His analysis of the developing situation was clearly more sophisticated than standard animal behavior. Alternative extraction options? Cross asked, while calculating their tactical situation against significantly superior forces. We create our own, Garrett replied with enhanced tactical analysis providing solutions that exceeded normal military planning capability. Enhanced soldiers don't require conventional support if we utilize our full capabilities. The stakes couldn't be higher, and the action is about to explode. If you're completely absorbed in this incredible story of betrayal and justice, hit that like button and let us know in the comments who you think can be trusted in this web of corruption. Professional military digital forensics equipment provides essential capabilities for preserving and analyzing evidence recovered from classified operations. These specialized systems include hardened data storage devices, encryption-breaking software, and communication analysis tools designed specifically for investigating complex corruption cases. The advanced forensic frameworks offer a complete chain of custody documentation and legal-grade evidence preservation that ensures critical intelligence can withstand scrutiny in court proceedings involving national security violations. Through enhanced tactical analysis that processed multiple variables simultaneously, Raven identified an alternative approach that would allow them to deliver the evidence while avoiding the ambush positions established along their original extraction route. Military Criminal Investigative Service has a field office at Elmendorf Air Force Base, she noted while calculating distances and approach options. 30 miles southwest, but more importantly, outside the operational area where they have established surveillance. Cross-checked the tactical feasibility of reaching Elmendorf through terrain that would provide concealment from aircraft and ground pursuit. Difficult terrain, but manageable if enhanced capabilities provide the endurance advantage you're suggesting. Enhanced physiology includes modified cardiovascular and muscular systems, Garrett confirmed, while assessing their group's capability for extended movement. We can maintain an operational tempo that exceeds normal human endurance by significant margins. Blake was studying intelligence from intercepted communications, his command access providing insight into the scope of forces arrayed against them. Federal coordination includes NSA, CIA, and Defense Intelligence Agency. This has escalated beyond military internal investigation. Because Project Lazarus evidence exposes corruption that extends throughout intelligence agencies, Atlas positioned himself for movement toward their alternative objective, his enhanced intelligence clearly understanding the tactical plan without requiring detailed explanation. The enhanced soldiers began movement toward Elmendorf Air Force Base with coordination that demonstrated capabilities far beyond normal military training. Their modified nervous systems allowed sustained high-performance operation while maintaining tactical awareness and decision-making capability under extreme stress. Cross followed with professional admiration for capabilities he'd never witnessed in conventional special operations training. Enhanced soldiers operated at efficiency levels that redefined his understanding of human potential under combat conditions. Blake monitored pursuit efforts while maintaining communication security, his growing understanding of enhanced soldier capabilities balanced by concern about the implications for military balance if the technology fell into hostile hands. They covered the first 10 miles in 90 minutes, maintaining tactical discipline while demonstrating endurance that would have been impossible for unenhanced personnel. Their modified physiology provided not just improved performance, but sustained capability that exceeded normal human limitations by extraordinary margins. Atlas coordinated with both enhanced soldiers through intelligence that operated beyond standard canine cognition, providing early warning and tactical support with timing that suggested consciousness modification similar to what had been performed on human subjects. The dog's enhancement, Cross observed during a brief tactical halt. His intelligence and coordination capability suggest neural modification similar to what you've experienced. Project Lazarus included K9 enhancement protocols, Raven confirmed, while checking their progress and assessing pursuit indicators. Atlas received cognitive and sensory improvements that complement enhanced soldier capabilities, creating a team unit with capabilities that exceed the sum of individual modifications, Garrett added with understanding of how thoroughly Hartwell's research had modified their cognitive and physical capabilities. Blake was monitoring radio communications that revealed increasing frustration from pursuit teams unable to maintain contact with enhanced personnel moving at impossible speeds through difficult terrain. They're requesting satellite surveillance to maintain tracking, he reported, with a mixture of concern and professional interest. Federal intelligence is committing significant resources to preventing our evidence from reaching investigative authorities. Because the evidence documents treason by federal personnel at executive levels, Raven replied, while maintaining movement toward Elmendorf. Exposing Project Lazarus will reveal corruption that extends throughout national intelligence agencies. They reached the perimeter of Elmendorf Air Force Base, as evening darkness provided concealment from aerial surveillance, but also revealed the scope of security measures established to prevent their approach. Through enhanced perception that exceeded normal visual capability, the enhanced soldiers assessed security positions, electronic surveillance equipment, and patrol patterns that suggested federal agencies had anticipated their destination. Base security has been reinforced with personnel that don't match normal Air Force protocols, Garrett observed, while studying the installation through enhanced tactical analysis. Federal agents with equipment and authority that supersedes military command structure. Cross confirmed the assessment through tactical optics that revealed security positions inconsistent with normal base defense procedures. NSA electronic warfare units, CIA ground personnel, and Defense Intelligence Agency coordination teams. They've turned Elmendorf into a federal operation. Blake's radio intercepts revealed communication between agencies that confirmed their worst suspicions about the scope of corruption they were facing. Joint agency operation under executive authority, he reported grimly. They have presidential authorization to prevent exposure of classified enhancement programs. Atlas provided reconnaissance information through enhanced intelligence that allowed sophisticated assessment of security measures and identification of potential infiltration routes that normal perception might miss. The K9 facility, Raven identified through tactical analysis that processed multiple variables simultaneously. Atlas knows the base layout and can guide us through security perimeters using routes that federal agencies might not have anticipated. Garrett was studying the evidence data chip that contained documentation of Project Lazarus crimes, understanding finally dawning about why federal agencies were committing such resources to prevent exposure. The enhancement technology documentation, he realized with a growing alarm. It doesn't just show what Hartwell sold to foreign governments. It shows which American personnel received modifications and what those modifications included. Cross-process the implications with professional understanding of intelligence operations. Enhanced personnel with behavioral modification could be embedded throughout military and intelligence agencies. Sleeper agents, Blake confirmed with horror. Enhanced soldiers with modified loyalty and behavior patterns, positioned throughout government and military leadership. The scope of corruption they were facing was beyond anything they had initially understood. Project Lazarus hadn't just been selling enhancement technology. It had been infiltrating enhanced personnel throughout American government and military structures. Atlas guided them through perimeter security using intelligence that operated beyond normal canine capability. His enhanced cognition allowing navigation through electronic surveillance and patrol patterns that would have detected normal infiltration attempts. Enhanced soldiers followed with capabilities that demonstrated the effectiveness of Hartwell's human modification research, even as they worked to expose the criminal applications of that same technology. They reached the Military Criminal Investigative Service field office without detection, but discovered that federal agencies had anticipated their destination and established comprehensive surveillance around the facility. MCIS personnel are under federal supervision, cross-observed through tactical optics that revealed security positions around the investigative office. Intelligence agencies have effectively neutralized normal investigative authorities. Then we bypass normal authorities, Raven decided, with tactical analysis that identified alternative approaches. Enhanced capabilities provide options that federal agencies might not have anticipated. Garrett was studying the data chip evidence with enhanced cognitive capability that allowed rapid processing of complex information. The documentation includes secure communication protocols for reaching investigative personnel who weren't compromised by Project Lazarus infiltration. Blake monitored federal communications while processing the scope of corruption that extended throughout intelligence agencies. If enhanced personnel with behavioral modification are embedded throughout the government, then normal investigative channels are compromised at fundamental levels. Atlas positioned himself for security, while enhanced soldiers prepared to utilize capabilities that exceeded federal expectations of what they were facing. Direct communication with congressional oversight committees. Raven identified through analysis of the evidence documentation. Military and intelligence corruption requires legislative investigation when executive agencies are compromised. Cross understood the implications of bypassing federal intelligence agencies to reach congressional oversight directly. That's outside the normal chain of command. Could be considered insubordination or treason. Exposing treason isn't treason, Garrett replied with enhanced tactical analysis, providing clear moral and legal justification. When command structure is compromised, duty requires finding clean authority. The enhanced soldiers prepared to utilize communication equipment and procedures documented in Garrett's evidence cache, preparing to expose Project Lazarus directly to congressional investigators who possessed authority to investigate federal intelligence agencies. Blake provided communication support while understanding that his career and freedom depended on successful exposure of corruption that extended to the highest levels of government and military leadership. Atlas maintained security awareness through enhanced intelligence that allowed detection of threats beyond normal perception. His modified cognition providing tactical support for operations that exceeded standard military parameters. They established secure communication with congressional oversight personnel using encrypted protocols that bypassed federal intelligence monitoring, preparing to transmit evidence that would expose the largest corruption scandal in American military history. Senator Elizabeth Morrison, chair of Senate Intelligence Committee, cross-identified through the communication protocols Garrett had preserved. Clean oversight authority with constitutional responsibility for investigating intelligence agency corruption. Raven activated the secure communication system with enhanced cognitive capability that allowed operation of complex encryption equipment beyond normal human technical expertise. Senator Morrison, this is Lieutenant Commander Raven Sterling, call sign Frost. I'm transmitting evidence of illegal human experimentation, technology transfer to hostile nations, and intelligence agency corruption involving Project Lazarus. The response came through layers of encryption and congressional security protocols, but the authority in the voice was unmistakable. Lieutenant Commander Sterling, we've been expecting your transmission. Agent Patterson was compromised 3 hours ago. Federal agencies have been attempting to intercept your evidence before it reaches congressional oversight. You won't believe what happens next. The corruption goes deeper than anyone imagined, and the final confrontation will blow your mind. Mash that like button and subscribe, because this story is reaching its incredible climax. Blake monitored federal communications that revealed agencies becoming aware that their surveillance had been bypassed, and evidence was being transmitted directly to congressional oversight. Intelligence agencies are scrambling response teams, he reported with growing urgency. They know we've reached clean oversight authority. Atlas detected approaching threats through enhanced senses that operated beyond normal perception. His intelligence providing warning about federal personnel converging on their position with intent to prevent completion of evidence transmission. Enhanced capabilities against federal agencies, Garrett noted while preparing defensive positions around their communication equipment. Time to demonstrate exactly what Hartwell's research created. Advanced cybersecurity systems designed specifically for congressional oversight operations provide essential protection for sensitive intelligence transmissions during corruption investigations. These specialized encryption frameworks include quantum-resistant algorithms and multi-layered authentication protocols that ensure classified evidence can be transmitted securely even when federal intelligence agencies attempt interception. The comprehensive security packages include real-time threat monitoring and automatic evidence preservation that protects critical documentation from hostile interference during national security investigations. Senator Morrison's voice cut through encrypted channels with authority that represented the highest levels of American constitutional government. Lieutenant Commander, we have teams en route to your location with congressional authority that supersedes federal agency jurisdiction. Hold position and prepare for protective extraction. Cross provided tactical assessment of approaching federal forces while understanding that constitutional authority was finally being brought to bear against intelligence agency corruption. Multiple federal teams converging from all directions, he reported with professional evaluation of their tactical situation. But enhanced capabilities provide defensive options they weren't prepared to face. Raven completed transmission of the complete Project Lazarus evidence file, while enhanced cognitive capability ensured data integrity and security verification that exceeded normal human technical expertise. Evidence transmission complete, she announced with tactical analysis that identified optimal defensive positions for protection of congressional extraction teams. Federal agencies no longer have the option of suppressing documentation. The engagement that followed demonstrated enhanced soldier capabilities against federal personnel equipped with advanced technology and extensive training, but unprepared for human modifications that exceeded their operational parameters. Enhanced soldiers, supported by modified K-9 intelligence and conventional military expertise, established defensive positions that protected congressional oversight teams while neutralizing federal personnel attempting to prevent exposure of intelligence agency corruption. Atlas coordinated tactical operations through enhanced cognition that allowed sophisticated battlefield assessment and communication with human partners using intelligence that exceeded normal animal capability by extraordinary margins. When federal interception attempts were defeated and congressional extraction teams secured the area, the enhanced soldiers had demonstrated capabilities that would redefine American understanding of human potential under stress while exposing corruption that extended throughout intelligence agencies. Congressional investigation teams are secure, Senator Morrison announced through protected communication channels. Evidence preservation confirmed. Federal agencies no longer possess authority to suppress Project Lazarus investigation. Cross-watched enhanced soldiers operate with capability that exceeded his experience in special operations training. Understanding finally what Hartwell's human experimentation had created and why federal agencies had been desperate to prevent exposure, Blake provided communication support while processing his own complicity in corruption that had extended throughout military and intelligence structures. Understanding that enhanced soldiers had exposed treason at levels that threatened American constitutional government, Garrett and Raven stood together with Atlas, enhanced human capability and modified K-9 intelligence demonstrating partnership that transcended normal military relationships while carrying evidence that would destroy careers and reveal corruption throughout federal agencies. Project Lazarus investigation begins now, Senator Morrison declared, with congressional authority that represented the American constitutional government responding to intelligence agency corruption. Enhanced soldiers who expose this treason will receive full protection and recognition for service beyond normal duty requirements. The immediate threat was neutralized, but the implications of Project Lazarus would reverberate through American military and intelligence agencies for years as congressional investigation exposed the full scope of human experimentation and technology transfer to hostile nations. 6 months later, the congressional hearing room was packed with media representatives, military leadership, and intelligence oversight personnel as testimony continued in what had become the largest corruption investigation in American history. Dr. Sloan Hartwell sat at the defendant's table in federal custody, her clinical detachment replaced by the reality of facing life imprisonment for human experimentation and treason. Around her, defense attorneys struggled with evidence so comprehensive that denial was impossible. Senator Morrison presided over hearings that had exposed corruption extending throughout federal intelligence agencies, with enhanced soldiers providing testimony that documented years of illegal research and technology transfer to hostile nations. Dr. Hartwell, Senator Morrison addressed the defendant with authority that represented the constitutional government responding to intelligence agency betrayal. Project Lazarus documentation shows you conducted illegal human experimentation on 47 American military personnel, resulting in 20 deaths and the torture of survivors, including Lieutenant Commander Sterling and Master Chief Blackstone. Hartwell's response carried the same clinical detachment she had displayed throughout the investigation, but without the authority she had once commanded through intelligence agency protection. Enhanced soldier research provided American military forces with capabilities that exceeded normal human limitations. She replied with scientific precision that ignored the human cost of her experiments. Technology advancement requires exploration of possibilities beyond conventional ethical constraints. Garrett testified from the witness stand with enhanced cognitive capability that allowed precise recollection of every detail of his year in induced unconsciousness, providing evidence that documented torture extending beyond normal human endurance. Dr. Bohr. Hartwell's research involved direct neural modification without informed consent, behavioral control experiments, and consciousness suppression for extended periods while conducting invasive procedures on unconscious subjects. His testimony was supported by medical evidence that showed neural interface ports, surgical modifications, and physiological changes that documented comprehensive human experimentation designed to create controllable super soldiers for sale to foreign governments. Raven provided additional testimony that detailed the scope of Project Lazarus technology transfer, naming specific foreign governments and terrorist organizations that had purchased enhanced soldier research for use against American military forces. Enhancement technology sold to China, Russia, and North Korea provided hostile nations with capability to create super soldiers specifically designed to operate against American military personnel, she testified, with enhanced memory that provided complete documentation of Hartwell's criminal activities. Atlas accompanied both enhanced soldiers throughout the congressional investigation, his modified intelligence providing evidence of K9 enhancement protocols that demonstrated the scope of Hartwell's research extended beyond human experimentation to include animal modification. Cross testified about discovering the illegal research facility and witnessing enhanced soldiers demonstrate capabilities that exceeded normal human parameters while exposing corruption that federal agencies had attempted to suppress. Blake provided testimony that documented his unwitting complicity in Project Lazarus while revealing intelligence agency coordination designed to protect illegal research from congressional oversight and military investigation. The congressional investigation revealed that Project Lazarus had been operating under executive authority that bypassed normal oversight, with federal agencies providing protection and funding for human experimentation that violated every principle of medical ethics and military honor. Enhanced personnel with behavioral modification were embedded throughout American military and intelligence agencies, Senator Morrison announced during final hearing sessions. Project Lazarus represented systematic infiltration of the American government by personnel with modified loyalty and cognitive control. The investigation exposed 63 enhanced personnel in positions throughout federal agencies, military leadership, and congressional staff. Sleeper agents created through behavioral modification and implanted throughout the American government to support continued human experimentation and technology transfer. Federal agencies responsible for protecting American interests had been infiltrated by enhanced personnel programmed to support research that advanced hostile foreign interests while suppressing investigation of intelligence agency corruption. Dr. Hartwell received life imprisonment without possibility of parole for treason, human experimentation, and technology transfer to hostile nations. 17 federal intelligence personnel received similar sentences for supporting illegal research that had compromised American national security. Project Lazarus was terminated with extreme prejudice. All research facilities were closed, and comprehensive oversight protocols were established to prevent future intelligence agency human experimentation. But the enhanced soldiers who had exposed the corruption faced a different challenge, learning to live with capabilities that exceeded normal human parameters while processing the psychological trauma of discovering they had been created as weapons for sale to America's enemies. Garrett and Raven established a specialized rehabilitation center for enhanced personnel recovery, providing support for soldiers who had survived Hartwell's experimentation while helping them adapt to capabilities that would remain permanent modifications to their nervous systems. Atlas became the program's coordinator for enhanced K9 rehabilitation, his modified intelligence allowing him to provide support for other animals who had received cognitive and sensory modifications through illegal research programs. Cross received promotion to Master Sergeant and assignment to Congressional Oversight Liaison, providing security expertise for investigations of intelligence agency corruption while ensuring that enhanced soldiers receive proper recognition for their service. Blake accepted reassignment to Military Ethics Oversight, using his experience with Project Lazarus to develop protocols preventing future human experimentation while supporting enhanced personnel integration into normal military service. This incredible journey of courage, loyalty, and justice is coming to an end, but the impact of their story will last forever. If this tale of heroes who refuse to give up touched your heart, please subscribe and share this video with someone who needs to hear about the power of truth and determination. Professional Enhanced Soldier Rehabilitation Services provide essential support for personnel recovering from illegal human experimentation and cognitive modification procedures. These specialized medical frameworks include psychological counseling, physical therapy, and capability adaptation training, designed specifically for individuals with enhanced nervous system modifications. The comprehensive rehabilitation programs offer long-term care management and social integration support that ensures enhanced personnel can maintain productive civilian and military lives despite permanent physiological and cognitive modifications resulting from illegal research procedures. 2 years after the congressional investigation concluded, Raven stood in the Alaska wilderness where her memory had first returned, watching Aurora Borealis dance across clear night sky with enhanced vision that allowed perception of electromagnetic phenomena beyond normal human capability. Garrett joined her with Atlas trotting beside him, the enhanced K9's intelligence content with partnership that had survived human experimentation and exposed corruption extending throughout American intelligence agencies. "Any regrets?" he asked quietly, though enhanced emotional sensitivity allowed him to understand her psychological state without requiring verbal confirmation. "About exposing Hartwell and Project Lazarus? None," Raven replied with enhanced cognitive capability that provided complete analysis of consequences and alternatives. "About receiving modifications that make normal human relationships challenging? Sometimes." Atlas nuzzled both enhanced sound soldiers with affection that transcended normal K9 behavioral parameters, his modified consciousness demonstrating emotional depth and intelligence that provided companionship uniquely suited to their enhanced capabilities. Normal was overrated anyway, Garrett concluded with humor that balanced their shared understanding of permanent alienation from conventional human society. Their enhanced capabilities would require lifelong adaptation and management, but those same modifications had provided the ability to expose intelligence agency corruption and prevent technology transfer that would have compromised American national security for generations. Cross approached through the wilderness with hiking equipment and camping gear, his invitation to join their annual memorial for Project Lazarus victims, representing friendship that had survived congressional investigation and media attention. "Senator Morrison sends her regards," he reported with professional satisfaction that included personal pride in enhanced soldiers who had demonstrated courage beyond normal human capability. Congressional oversight committees have approved full rehabilitation funding and permanent protection status. Blake emerged from the tree line with supplies for their memorial campfire, his participation in annual remembrance demonstrating redemption through service to enhanced personnel rehabilitation and military ethics oversight. "No additional enhanced personnel discoveries this year," he announced with relief that came from a comprehensive investigation of intelligence agencies. Hartwell's research appears to have been completely exposed and terminated. They established camp in the clearing where Raven had first awakened with no memory beside Atlas, who had spent a year trying to rescue his partner from illegal human experimentation. The location had become sacred ground for survivors of intelligence agency corruption. The memorial fire honored 20 American soldiers who had died during Hartwell's enhancement experiments, 63 enhanced personnel who had been embedded throughout the government as sleeper agents, and countless foreign victims who had suffered from technology transfer to hostile nations. Atlas positioned himself between the enhanced soldiers with contentment that demonstrated successful adaptation to capabilities beyond normal K9 parameters, his modified intelligence providing companionship that understood their unique psychological and physiological requirements. "What's next?" Cross asked, while watching flames dance in patterns that enhanced vision could analyze mathematical relationships invisible to normal perception. Enhanced soldier capabilities applied to protecting American interests through proper channels. Raven replied with tactical analysis that identified opportunities for positive application of their modifications. "Congressional oversight for intelligence agency activities," Blake added, with commitment to preventing future human experimentation through systematic government accountability. "Rehabilitation support for enhanced personnel integration," Garrett concluded, with understanding that their modified capabilities required ongoing adaptation, assistance for both survivors and society. Atlas barked once, not warning or demand, but contentment that communicated satisfaction with pack dynamics that had survived government corruption and illegal experimentation. They spent the night in Alaska wilderness, enhanced soldiers whose capabilities exceeded normal human parameters, finding peace and companionship with conventional personnel who had demonstrated courage beyond normal duty requirements. But as morning approached, Raven's enhanced hearing detected something that made her tactical awareness activate with professional alertness. A satellite phone was ringing in Blake's equipment pack. "Congressional Oversight Emergency Line," he explained, while answering with protocol appropriate for national security communications. Blake speaking. The conversation that followed was brief, but carried implications that made enhanced soldiers exchange glances filled with tactical assessment and growing concern. "What is it?" Cross asked after Blake ended the call with an expression that suggested new complications requiring their unique capabilities. "Intelligence agencies in 3 allied nations have discovered facilities conducting enhancement research based on stolen Project Lazarus technology," Blake reported with professional gravity. "Congressional oversight is requesting enhanced soldier consultation for international investigation." Garrett looked at Raven with understanding that transcended normal human communication. Their enhanced cognitive capability processing implications of technology transfer that extended beyond what congressional investigation had exposed. Hartwell's research didn't end with Project Lazarus. Raven realized with tactical analysis that identified patterns suggesting ongoing human experimentation in foreign facilities. Allied nations requesting American assistance for investigation of enhancement programs suggests international cooperation in human experimentation. Atlas remained alert beside enhanced soldiers, whose capabilities would be required for investigation, extending beyond American borders. Cross studied their tactical situation with professional assessment of requirements that exceeded normal military investigation parameters. Enhanced soldiers investigating enhancement programs in foreign nations could be extremely dangerous. Could be the only way to ensure Hartwell's research doesn't continue destroying lives in other countries. Blake replied, with understanding that congressional oversight had identified a mission requiring capabilities that only enhanced personnel could provide. The enhanced soldiers stood in Alaska wilderness, watching sunrise illuminate mountains that had witnessed their emergence from memory suppression and exposure of intelligence agency corruption, understanding that their service to the American constitutional government was continuing rather than ending. "International investigation of human experimentation," Garrett said quietly, "using enhanced capabilities to prevent the creation of more enhanced victims. Justice that extends beyond American borders," Raven added, with tactical analysis that identified the mission as continuation of their duty to protect innocent people from illegal enhancement research. Atlas moved between enhanced soldiers with intelligence that understood their commitment to preventing human experimentation, while utilizing capabilities that resulted from the same research they were committed to exposing. "We go," Cross stated simply, his decision representing friendship and professional respect that would support enhanced soldiers regardless of mission requirements. "We go together," Blake confirmed with redemption that required continued service to enhanced personnel and protection of innocent victims. "We go as a team," Raven concluded with enhanced tactical analysis that identified optimal coordination for international investigation requiring capabilities beyond normal human parameters. Garrett smiled with enhanced emotional capability that balanced tactical necessity with human connection that transcended government corruption and illegal experimentation. "Atlas, are you ready for international deployment?" The enhanced K-9 barked once, affirmative response that communicated readiness for continued service protecting innocent people from research that had created them while destroying others. They broke camp and began movement toward extraction coordinates. Enhanced soldiers whose capabilities had exposed American intelligence agency corruption, now preparing to investigate international human experimentation, using the same modifications that made them uniquely qualified for missions beyond normal military parameters. Behind them, Alaska wilderness held memories of awakening without identity beside a loyal K-9 whose intelligence had preserved evidence that exposed treason extending throughout federal agencies. Ahead lay international service that would utilize enhanced capabilities for protecting innocent people from human experimentation, while demonstrating that illegal research could create individuals committed to justice rather than weapons for sale to hostile forces. The mission continued, carried forward by enhanced soldiers who had discovered that duty meant more than following orders, that honor required sacrifice without recognition, and that the strongest warriors were often those who protected others from becoming victims of the same research that had created them. Atlas trotted beside enhanced soldiers whose partnership had survived government corruption, illegal experimentation, and congressional investigation while maintaining loyalty that transcended normal human and canine relationships. Their enhanced capabilities would serve American interests and international justice, protecting innocent people from human experimentation while utilizing modifications that demonstrated the positive potential of research that had been corrupted by intelligence agency greed and foreign technology transfer. The hunt for enhanced research programs was beginning, and enhanced soldiers were ready to ensure that no other innocent victims would suffer from illegal experimentation disguised as military advancement. Justice required eternal vigilance from people whose capabilities exceeded normal human parameters, but whose commitment to protecting others remained fundamentally human despite comprehensive nervous system modification. The enhanced soldiers disappeared into the morning light, carrying capabilities that would protect freedom and human dignity from research that threatened both, demonstrating that the most important battles were often fought by those whose existence challenged the boundaries between human potential and technological enhancement. Their mission was just beginning. But 3 weeks into the international investigation, Raven received an encrypted message on her secure communication device that made enhanced tactical awareness activate with professional alarm. The message contained a single sentence that changed everything they thought they understood about Project Lazarus and Dr. Hartwell's research. Subject Zero has awakened. She remembers everything, and she's coming home. The screen went dark, leaving enhanced soldiers staring at technology that shouldn't have been able to contact them through congressional security protocols. Atlas growled low in his throat, warning of threats that exceeded normal perception, while his enhanced intelligence processed implications that suggested their understanding of Hartwell's research had been incomplete. Subject Zero, Garrett said quietly, enhanced cognitive capability, accessing memories that had been suppressed during his year of unconsciousness. Hartwell mentioned a preliminary subject before our enhancement procedures. The first enhanced soldier, Raven realized with tactical analysis that identified patterns suggesting comprehensive deception about the scope of human experimentation they had exposed. Cross-watched enhanced soldiers process information that suggested their congressional investigation had revealed only part of Project Lazarus research. What don't we know about Hartwell's programs? Blake's expression carried growing concern about intelligence that had been concealed even from congressional oversight investigation. If there was a preliminary subject, why wasn't that documented in any evidence we recovered? Atlas moved closer to enhanced soldiers with body language that communicated protective alertness, his modified intelligence clearly detecting threats that normal perception couldn't identify. Because Subject Zero wasn't a victim of enhancement research, Raven concluded with enhanced cognitive capability that processed implications, extending beyond their understanding of Project Lazarus. She was the researcher who created it. The words hung in the international morning air like a revelation that redefined everything they believed about human experimentation, intelligence agency corruption, and the true scope of enhancement research that threatened innocent people worldwide. Somewhere in the distance, a satellite phone began ringing, with communications that would challenge everything enhanced soldiers understood about their capabilities, their mission, and the research that had created them. Subject Zero was coming home, and enhanced soldiers were about to discover that their understanding of Project Lazarus had been carefully controlled by someone whose capabilities exceeded their own. The hunt was about to become something far more dangerous than international investigation of human experimentation. It was about to become a confrontation with the architect of enhancement research, who possessed capabilities that surpassed anything congressional investigation had revealed. The enhanced soldiers looked at each other with tactical awareness that identified threats beyond their previous experience, understanding that their service to justice and protection of innocent people would require capabilities they had never been forced to utilize. Atlas remained alert beside enhanced soldiers, whose partnership would face challenges that exceeded government corruption and illegal experimentation, preparing for confrontation with enhancement research that predated Project Lazarus and exceeded their understanding of human modification technology. The mission was evolving, and enhanced soldiers were about to discover that their capabilities had been designed by someone whose intelligence and modifications operated at levels they had never imagined possible. Subject Zero was coming home, and the real battle for human dignity and freedom was just beginning. In the distance, storm clouds gathered over the international landscape that would witness confrontation between enhanced soldiers committed to justice and the researcher whose capabilities had created them while threatening innocent people worldwide. The enhanced soldiers who had awakened in Alaska snow, beside a loyal K9 partner, were about to face the ultimate test of modifications that had been designed for purposes they were only beginning to understand. Their greatest enemy had always been their creator, and she was finally ready to reclaim her weapons.